Ellie, an aspiring fashion designer living in the present, has a mysterious gift that allows her to see supernatural forces, such as ghosts. When Ellie starts seeing a dazzling wannabe singer from the 1960s, she realizes that she could potentially solve a murder case that is decades old. Now, I don't love director Edgar Wright as much as most people do. I like Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and Baby Driver, but I wouldn't say I love those movies. In fact, in my seemingly rather unpopular opinion, I would honestly say that my favorite Edgar Wright film is The World's End. But my favorite thing about Edgar Wright is his ability to fuse multiple genres into a single film. The movies I listed, for example, do a great job of mixing comedy, sci-fi, and action with sprinkles of horror elements as well. And now, Wright's latest film leans heavily on the horror thriller genre, making Last Night in Soho the darkest movie that Wright has ever directed. And obviously, it's really good. Last Night in Soho is a very stylish film that features beautiful cinematography, a wonderful production design, a sharp script with an engaging story, fantastic direction, and some really great performances. Thomasin McKenzie is fantastic here in the lead role, portraying Ellie as a naive, shy, yet optimistic young woman who gradually becomes more confident and mature as the movie progresses, even despite some of the horrific things that she sees. So, Last Night in Soho is a great coming-of-age story with a female protagonist, and McKenzie plays the part perfectly. She is easily becoming one of my favorite new actresses working today. Anya Taylor-Joy is also outstanding as Sandy, the young woman from the 1960s. Anya Taylor-Joy has gained a lot of popularity over the last couple of years, and I honestly wasn't quite sure why. I mean, I think she's a good actress, but I don't know if I would have said that she's a great actress. But now, I see it. I'm a fan, and I'm totally on board the Anya Taylor-Joy fan train. But the best performance probably goes to the scene-stealing Diana Rigg, who most people will recognize as Olenna Tyrell from Game of Thrones. I was unfamiliar with Rigg's work outside of Game of Thrones, so I'm really glad that I got to see her shine in something other than GOT. Last Night in Soho is dedicated to her memory, and in her honor, I should probably go back to watch some of her previous projects, because she absolutely kills it in this movie. I'm sure her presence in film and TV history will be missed. Matt Smith, Terrence Stamp, and newcomer Michael Ajao also do a fine job of rounding out the supporting cast, but there are a few performances in the movie that I just did not care for. For example, Sonova Carlson plays a character named Jocasta, and she basically acts as a school bully to Ellie. And even though bullies obviously do exist in real life, I don't know if cliché high school bullies exist in college universities. In my experience, college kids just tend to mind their own business. So Jocasta's character specifically felt really cartoonish and over the top. And that weird choice in characterization made her presence clash with the darker tone that this movie was going for. So I hated every time Jocasta appeared on screen because she really took me out of the movie. Plus, I don't think Ellie really needed an additional antagonist to face on top of everything else that she was already experiencing. Last Night in Soho does a great job of showcasing that in real life, there are scarier things than ghosts, because things like the glamour lifestyle are not always what they appear to be. And that is a really good message to focus on, but I do think it gets a little undercut by including a caricature like Jocasta. And yes, I am aware that that means that I believe an actual character detracts from the realism in this film, more so than the supernatural elements. So take that as you will. But thankfully, the film really tightens its focus in the third act. However, since this movie is something of a mystery thriller, the film does take its time in revealing exactly what is going on in the plot. And this can make the second act of the movie feel a little slow. But again, the pacing really improves as the film starts to reach its climax. I admit that I didn't care for the final exposition dump that is placed during the climax, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the film overall. So, Last Night in Soho is a fine addition to Edgar Wright's filmography. Though I do have some issues with the movie, I'm glad to see that Wright is challenging himself creatively by branching out into new genres, all while retaining his unique voice. So, while I wouldn't say that I love Last Night in Soho, I will say that I admire Wright's ability to balance a darker tone and a more grounded subject matter with his signature style and flair. So you should see Last Night in Soho if you get the chance to, and as always, thanks for watching.